What is the HLA score? When are the cutoffs?
So the matching system is, so the HLA system is called a human leukocyte antigen system. That is a portion of your chromosome 6, which has genes that determine your ability to fight infection, for example, and detect foreign proteins that get into the body, for example. This system basically also tells your cells how to reject donor cells coming in, and how to tolerate other people's organs, for example, bone marrow or kidney from another person. So that system is very important in choosing a donor. We basically look at, the HLA system is a long system. If you can think of a tape measure, it's like a long stretch of DNA. And we basically look at 8 points. You have to at least look at 8 points to call it a modern way of looking at it, with what we call a high resolution HLA typing, which means on these 8 points we are looking at the specific sequence of DNA at those 8 points. And 4 of these points are going to come from your mother, and 4 of these points are going to come from your dad. So basically the 8 points, we call them A, B, C, and DRB1. And if you have all of a full match from a sibling, usually will be matched 8 out of 8, which means all 8 points match closely with the recipient and the donor. And you know that, and then you assume that intervening points are also going to be mostly matched, and you're happy to go forward. Some centers do 10 points because they do add one more point. One more point means one from the dad, one from the mother, so now it becomes 10 out of 10. You can even do 12. You know, it doesn't generally change. If you're looking at siblings, it is basically the same. You know, you do 8 or 10 or 12. It's most of the time it's the same. Very rarely you can have a one antigen mismatch in a sibling, and it really doesn't matter. We would still go with that. When we look at unrelated donors, again, we look at these 8 points, and if you're matched on those 8 points, we say that they're almost as good as a sibling, because the modern way of HLA matching picks out that. When we look at half-matched donors, if you again, so if you are a child of the patient, you would have inherited half his genes, and this HLA region would also be the one that you got from the patient or your parent who is the patient. That would be the same, and that would be a 4 out of 8 match. Sometimes by happenstance, the other half that comes from the other parent may also have the region that matches with your parent, so it could be better than 4. So at the minimum, it would be a 4 out of 8. It could be a 5 out of 8 match because the other side also matches a few by happenstance. But for these half-match transplants, the minimum you need is a 4 out of 8.
Is there a difference in matches between 4 out of 8 versus 8 out of 8 or 10 out of 10?
So 8 out of 8 matches are what we prefer when you do an unrelated donor. If you do a mismatched donor, there's higher rates of GVHD when it's an unrelated donor. But when it's a haplo donor, where it's only a 4 out of 8, we do the transplant with a completely different way of transplanting. We call it a transplant with a post-transplantation immunosuppression using a drug called cyclophosphamide. So that way of doing the transplant is radically different from the way we do matched transplants. So the outcomes in terms of GVHD and all are very similar, or even sometimes even better at lower rates of GVHD. So the half-matched donors are done in a completely different way. So we don't, so overall the way in which the complications are a little bit different, in that there is a little more infection, a little less GVHD, and a little more immune suppression for the haplo transplants.